Boone and Jacque, Sahon. Self-imprisonment underneath the heavy cloak of fear is a fate worse than death. Part 1. Catapult. Boone. Chapter 1. A powder blue cloud, descending towards the Sahon water, thundered 1,000 walnut crunching echo along its surface. Lightning of the same color ignited beyond what the eye could see. As thunder boomed once more, a silver sphere no bigger than a tennis ball emerged from the center of the cloud, hovering over a thin red jelly-like film on the surface of the water. Wrinkling as the sphere whirred closer and closer, slowly breaking and steaming a rip in the film, slipping through slowly until it was fully encompassed by the chilly and inky water. The film resealed itself, rippling suddenly when the sphere rocketed down the depths of the water. A few feet down, it halted, though it didn't stay still for long. A white and red glowing dot shone in the middle of it, scanning the midnight black starless night of water. The sphere began to move in erratic yet calculated twists and turns, descending further and further down, accompanied only by the sound of its centrifugal force whirring and vibrating tightly around it. Its path became horizontal, as if swinging like a trapeze artist tripping on acid, afraid to fall behind the line that separates reality from fiction, light from dark, internal heaven and hell, for it came upon an encompassing net of glittering red sand. Strangely, each grain kept their distance from the sphere. It moved in a circle, understanding that it could not connect with the sand. Furious, it remained still and stopped its centrifugal force. As it dropped below the sand split into two schools and slowly began to spin in a whirlpool fashion. The sphere began to whir quietly. In a jolting speed, the whirlpools jetted down into the depths of the water. The sphere bolted down as well, chasing the sand with incredible speed. Its red and white light pulsated, following the sand like a shadow. Shallow breathing and neon blue flames made the sphere croak a low and terrifying camel in distress cry. It reached two bodies held up by dark roots emanating from the depths of the water. The whirlpools enveloped the bodies tightly. The sphere descended slowly, approaching the one on the right first. "Boone," croaked a godly alligator voice. The sphere looked at the body on the left. "Jacque," croaked the headless voice. Understanding it couldn't make contact directly with either person, the sphere ejected its red and white glowing eye. It split in two and went into each body's chest. Suddenly, the whirlpools tightened and spun faster. The roots released them. Flames were snuffed out one by one, and their gills closed and disappeared in a blood-curdling crunch. Boone and Jacque began to grimace before they could attempt to breathe or grab at their chest. The whirlpools ascended them eastbound. The sphere followed them as fast as it could. The path became stomach-churning, going left, right, up, down, corkscrewing in infinite directions, and then, in a blink of an eye, both were separated, leaving the sphere all by itself. It watched Boone get taken up to the surface of the water, in which his body was surrounded by red and white light, sinking the sphere out of sight and bringing Boone into a heart-pounding jump out of the water. Sweat poured off Boone as he gripped his sopping wet hair that stuck to his naked body. A pulsating migraine made him vomit a sour bile into a sink he could barely see through a thick cloud of steam. He threw up again and again. He took a long and sharp breath and blindly found a cold water faucet and pulled the valve open. Cold water poured softly from the spout. He brought his lips to the water while holding his long hair out of his face. Having rinsed his mouth, he spat out the water in sourness and wiped his eyes while still looking at the sink. His heart skipped a beat at the monochrome gold beads of water on the spout of the faucet. He gathered his breath, then wiped a spot on the mirror, seeing himself in black and white. Caught off guard, he took a clumsy step back, falling into an empty clawfoot tub that never ended. Before he could untangle his clustering headache, he gripped at bedsheets upon a thin, lumpy mattress. Running his hands over his chest and legs, he noticed he was dry and fresh, as if someone had toweled him off hours ago, blow-dried his hair, but thought he could dress himself. Utterly confused, he swung his legs over to the floor, which was covered in dirty laundry. He put his hands to his sides and looked down. Unable to tell if the laundry was his, or if he was even in his childhood room, or back at home with Shammy and his children he missed dearly. The moment came into frame of his swirling mind. A polka-dotted hospital gown greeted his right hand. He looked at it, sensing a haunting and heavy cloaking energy. Yet there was something light about it, something that made him feel safe by the touch of its softness. He grabbed it and held it in front of him. His fingertips tingled, froze, then tightened and relaxed. Shook by this colorless gown, he looked back to where it was on the bed. A pair of boxer briefs, socks, and Converse shoes, with a note on top, lay next to him. He got dressed and pulled his hair back into a ponytail with a scrunchie found sitting on a nightstand with an Ogikop Tinks owl clock. He grabbed the folded note and opened it. Nothing was written or drawn inside. Suddenly, a tape recorder began to play from inside the nightstand. Boone tossed the empty note on the ground and opened the top drawer, seeing the tape recorder and headphones next to a jar of change and a compass going haywire. He took the tape recorder, which had the headphones plugged, put them on, then held the tape recorder in one hand and compass in the other. As the quiet hum of the film rolling buzzed, he looked around the room, not recognizing anything. The armoire had clothes of a child, but they were not his. At least, none that he could tell if they were his. He moved to the window facing east of his room. There were no clouds, no sun, no signs of grass or life of any kind. Uncomfortable with the idea of being on some staged room, he made his way to the door. He opened it slowly, thinking something was going to pop out at him. He was met with a strangely long hallway with no doors to other rooms, just a spiral staircase, barren walls and no windows. He checked his gown for pockets. Thankfully, he had one on each side. He put the recorder and unsteady compass in his pockets, then headed downstairs. "Okay," whispered Xantia, then placing the recorder on a bathroom counter. "Shammy is resting, so I'm going to give Jean a bath and we will play." Boone gasped when Jean giggled and splashed water in the tub. Xantia giggled as well and splashed the water with him. He made it down the stairs without feeling time pass by. He kept listening to them peacefully, but couldn't help but wonder why Xantia was playing caretaker. Though he knows she doesn't hate children, he has never known her to look after any, nor said she wanted any. Not even Jacque said he wanted children. He made it to a kitchen when Xantia stopped giggling, then walked to the recorder, sighing in a shuddering lull, then pressing stop. Boone took the recorder out of his pocket, then popped it open, and took out the cassette. On side A it said, Jean's Bubble Bath 24. He mouthed it to himself multiple times, but nothing came of it. He turned it around to side B, which read, Play Me Outside. Desperate for answers, he walked to a door past a living room with nothing but a couch and a TV. Opened it nervously and stood motionless. A broiling and humid heat smacked him in the face, nearly blinding him as the clarity of the sky poked the back of his eyes. Despite the unbelievable pressure in his eye sockets, he put the tape in and pressed play, closing the door behind him. As he placed the recorder in his pocket, he stared at what made him freeze. A long road of urban homes with families standing outside on their front yard, all dressed in the same gown as him. He stepped down concrete stairs and walked along a slate stone path. He fished for the compass, but it had disappeared. He checked his pocket frantically. Stop, said a neutral voice. Boone took his hand out of his pocket and listened closely to the recording, but there was only the quiet hum. He swore he could hear footsteps, but as he looked around, he saw no one on his yard. He looked at the grass and saw footprints being made, though how they were being made made his jaw lock shut, for in every step were jagged holes being pressed into the ground, releasing a horrid odor of death. Though he couldn't speak, and the aftertaste of his sour bile grew strong, he walked forward, sensing someone or something following him. Do not bow your head or stiffen your neck. Embrace the fear these poor souls have clutched onto. What terrified Boone is that he no longer had control of his body and could still hear the clattering feet with spiked soles behind him. He faced the first family, whose faces, just like everyone else, were blurry. From the tape recording, a man with a deep Croatian accent said, I watched my brother's body get crushed by a train near my home. As these words came out chokily, the blurred lips of the man holding his son's shoulders moved. I hadn't seen him in 10 years because of a war he was not meant to fight. He fought for greedy government and spineless politicians. Boone looked at the rest of the family. A mother, a grandmother in a wheelchair, a boy, and a girl. I called my brother's closest comrades that fought with him, asked if they could help me avenge my brother's death. They said to avenge a loved one's death means to commit treason and blind oneself with bitter anger. Tell him what you did. Tell him why we are imprisoned here with you, said his wife in a shy yet heartbroken tone. I hunted down the train conductor. He dry swallowed and continued. Sliced his neck and stomach in the middle of the night. Boone's stomach churned as he processed everything. You always do this. You always stop before the absolute truth of the scar you keep too close to your heart gets a chance to heal. You never allowed yourself and us the chance to grow our lives around the scar. That's why we are stuck here. Why can't you let go? You are not just punishing yourself. You are punishing us all. Boone swiveled away from them unwillingly and marched on, looking back once and then never looking back. He kept going by the order of who or whatever made him march until he was face to face with a house that had no one in front of it. But he did see footprints pressed into the grass. Unlike the ones from the home he was first at, these ones had no penetrated holes in the ground and were different sizes. He inhaled deeply and said, Ant puree. The footprints disappeared and the home became infested with moss and thick vines that shattered windows and everything in the home, which took shape of his and Shammy's home. No! cries of his wife and children escaping every vine, then running out the back, made him run to the front door. The vines ripped the home out of its foundation. Boone leaped for the front door. "Leave my family alone!" Right when his fingers were about to touch the doorknob, a cloaking shadow snatched him. Curled in a ball, he elbowed whoever had captured him. Their back was wide and solid like a brick wall. As this being walked with Boone thrown over his back, he stopped fussing, for an electric jolt that pierced his skull caused any hold the being had over him leave him, and same goes for the will to stay awake.